What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge, and this is part 2 of making this handled chisel, which I think turned out pretty awesome. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 of this 2-part series, go check it out. Part 1 focused on the forging of the actual chisel itself, and part 2 is going to focus on the heat treatment of the chisel and putting a handle on this thing. So, without any further ado, let's get rocking. All right, touch mark is in. Now it is time to heat treat. This is 4140, a medium carbon steel that is water quenchable. If you're using anything else, you definitely want to use the prescribed heat treatment process for whatever steel you're using, because that varies significantly from steel to steel. There are many steels that you should not quench in water, and the reason for that is because they will crack or even fracture or splinter in the water. In this particular method that I'm using, I'm going to be doing a hardening cycle by quenching the first ½ an inch or so of the chisel itself, and then I'm going to temper it or draw down that hardness slightly so that it is not as brittle by letting the remaining heat in the chisel itself bleed to the tip. And I'm keeping the chisel up off the anvil face so that the anvil doesn't act as a giant heat sink and suck all of the heat out of the chisel before I get the actual tempering colors to run. I'm going to let the tip get to a dull straw yellow color, which corresponds to about 430 to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a good tempering temperature for this application of this type of steel. And we'll do that as many times as the colors will run. Then we'll work on getting a handle on this thing. All right, and I think that's going to do it for me. So I'm going to grab this the other direction, finish brushing it, and then I need to give this a layer of beeswax while the chisel is still pretty hot, so that it has enough heat to melt it. Just to give the chisel a nice black layer of protection on the outside, and then we'll move on to cleaning up the eye and getting this thing on a handle. Now, the key to properly grinding this after you've heat treated is to make sure you don't get the tip too hot. If you get the tip over that 430 degrees and it turns any colors, you are tempering it again, and you don't want to over temper just by doing a grinding session. That's one reason I do grind barehanded, because if I am holding the piece of steel, there's almost no chance that that tip will get hotter than I can hold on to before it'll get to that 430 degrees. All right, so I'm just going to come in with a half round file and just clean up the inside of the eye here. And I'm not doing major filing or anything. I'm just cleaning up any sharp rags or corners or anything that could hang up on the handle as I'm trying to drive it in. But for the most part, it's just smoothing stuff out. And I'm coming in with just a completely round small file to get the sharper corners of the sharper curves of the eye here. Now it is time to get the handle all shaped. This is just a half of an axe handle that I had previously started working on for an old hammer that I was trying to put a handle on. And I'm just going to repurpose it to meet this requirement. So I'm just going to grind this to shape, just take down a lot of the extra material here, and then we will get it fit up and get a wedge in it to finish up the final product. All right, before I get too deep into shaping this handle, I want to eliminate a bunch of the extra material I've got up here. There's still a little bit of travel left to go, or a little bit of distance left to tighten this thing up on, but in the grand scheme of things, I think we are ready to do the next step here. And now that I've got it roughed in on the grinder, I can identify where the corners are that are contacting and knock those down to the file. And now just to put a split through the top of this here. Now I'm going to work on the wedge, and I'm going to use a piece of this Paduke that I have lying around, because I think it'll be a really pretty contrast. That'll work. A big caution here on working with oily woods like Paduke or Purple Heart. Make sure you are wearing breathing protection when you are sanding or grinding this type of wood. The sawdust that it gives off can be toxic. All right, so I've got the Paduke wedge ground to shape. Fits nicely in the tip of the handle. Now, as you can tell, this is going to be significantly shorter than I originally planned. Should give me still plenty of standoff distance from the heat, but that's because the tip of the piece of wood that I started with was so slim that it actually was too skinny this direction to fit in the eye. But this is down to where it's ready. Then I'm going to use my trusty old half an axe handle, the other half to this axe handle, to hang it in there. It might not have enough inertia being so light that this might not work. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take this back to the vise and hammer it down just a tad, and then get the wedge glued in there, and we'll be ready to go. As you can tell, this is wholly not finished, right? Completely not finished handle. And the reason for that is because I wanted to give myself enough room or mass of handle itself to actually make sure it lines up in line with the actual eye. Looks like I might be a little off center from the eye itself, so it'll give me a good chance to grind and shape this while the actual chisel is on it, so that everything lines up and is nice and smooth and perfect. All right, so a couple nice taps with this seated between the jaws of the anvil, and it is now fully seated and ready to be wedged. All right, so while this is drying, I'm just going to start working on the handle now that I can see what is in line with the actual piece. And we're just going to throw another 40 grit belt on here and get to grinding. Oof, that was a bad idea. All right, so now that I've got that roughed in with the 40 grit, I'm just going to switch to a high grit, 200 or something, and smooth this out before I give it a burn. All right, we gave the handle a little bit of a soak in some linseed oil. Obviously half the handle. But I wanted to just let that soak in to the end grain there, and then we'll smear some around. And that did a nice job at rehydrating the wood after the burn, because you don't want it to be, cracking and splintering and stuff like that. I had a couple cracks develop because I let it get too hot, too fast. All right, it's officially been glued up for a couple of hours at this point, and it looks like a silly little tomahawk, if I'm being honest, which is kind of awesome. But I'm going to cut this off just above. The Paduke does not like this saw. Alrighty, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, or ring that notification bell. If you want to support me in the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link is in the description below the video, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking.